All right. Welcome, Canada. And of course, lawyers hired by whatever Muslim Brotherhood front group organization here to watch this to sue me, either right now, in the past, in the present, whenever you're watching this. You know you're the real MVPs of this show. So, Canada, we are closed. Closed for business. Guys, everyone, I was contacted by my good friend Justin Trudeau, and he just wants you to know, if you could just be in a constant state of fear, I would appreciate that. It says, all your civil liberties are nonsense. Please give them up. So if you could just never have any freedom or hope. Also, don't touch your grandmother. Okay, don't hug her. Don't hug that grandmother. Just let her die. All right. So we just want to let you know this show supports the message, and we just don't want you to ever have any civil liberties ever again. So churches closed, small business closed. You know the deal, Canada. You're not allowed to go anywhere. No one's allowed to do anything. We're in the third lockdown, the fourth lockdown. We're basically still in lockdown number 1. We never stopped with the lockdowns. It's been perma-lockdown. You know, I'm locked down, you're locked down. You know, lockdowns for me, for thee, for everyone. Everyone gets a lockdown. You get a lockdown. You get a lockdown. Everyone gets locked down. So, all right, here's where we are. Grace Life Church is still closed. The Conservative Party still doesn't care about conservatism. You know, Justin Trudeau's lying. The American media finally covers this nonsense. Jake Tapper says Tru-anon. Then Michelle Rempel finally decides to start, tweeting about civil liberties. The war in Afghanistan, we'll get into that later. But this week, okay. Full disclosure, you guys know I've been a bit busy, got a major court date coming up next Wednesday. So, I've been doing a lot of research and prepping and putting together A, B, and C, and D. So apologies if I'm not as sharp and on things as I am for every other week, because, I have not had the bandwidth to monitor the news like I do every other week. So great news is we're going to turn this into like half like the standard show. We'll talk about the shootings in the States and the rioting and Joe Biden and some stuff. But I'm going to full out engage with the comments. I'm going to let you, as long as you're not saying like patently insane things, right? Like I'm not talking about like the lizard people or whatever. We're not answering questions, but like, you know what? We obligatory praise, dear Lord, feminist. Okay, praise our dear leader, feminist parent of Canada. Thank you, Matt Phillips, for praying. I hope everyone is praying for Justin Trudeau, because without him, where would we be as a country? He is the most beautiful and amazing prime minister ever. So I'm going to let you guys drive this one too. I'm going to try and whatever comments come up here, we're going to engage it, because this show is your show, is my show. Now, if you're trying to comment and ask a question and it's not live, then I'm not going to respond. How do I know? It should say live there, or like there should be a view counter somewhere. If it's that, if you're watching right now, 8:05 Eastern Standard Time Wednesday, let's engage. Okay. So Canada closed, right? Fat Trudeau closed Ontario again. Folks, you wouldn't believe me. We got variants. We've got double variants, triple variants. I was reading something like, apparently like the Brazilian variant is the worst variant we have. But migrant workers from Brazil were still allowed to be coming in for months when all the travel was closed, right? We could still have like migrant workers coming in. What in the heck is going on there? Like, and so I'm gonna go with my standard. At no point, for this is for politicians, at no point has the pandemic ever been more dangerous than contradicting your own narrative, right? So that's been, if you go back to day number 1, right? Outbreak in China, Wuhan, it's going down, right? It's danger in Wuhan, danger in Iran, danger in Italy. Oh my God. Can we close travel to the hotspots in the pandemic? No, can't do that. Not allowed. Thanks, Jody, for the fad. And that's right. Canadian media is crap, but this is now Canadian media. It's great media. Right? So at no point do they ever turn their brains on and be like, yeah, actually, letting people in from infected hotspots into the country, that's a bad thing. Right? Oh, you can't, right? And at no point has safety of Canadians ever overtaken the, adherence to the narrative. And we're just learning now, like even the American media, like again, this doesn't become this is what I hate about Canada and Canadian media. Nothing in Canada, like we ignore Canadian news until the Americans pay attention, and then all of a sudden it's big news. And this drives me crazy. This drives me absolutely crazy, right? So you had Jake Tapper finally covering the the complete failure of the Canadian vaccination program on every level. Now, you don't want the vaccine? I don't care. Don't get the vaccine. But you at least have to admit that lots of people do want the vaccine. Now, you can say whatever you want about them, but I believe, considering it's not been fully tested, there are no long-term studies, I believe this should be a completely free choice. That means some people are going to want it, some people aren't going to want it, right? We need to get vaccines to the people who want it. That's okay response. You're looking at the numbers now from Israel, the first country to get, massively vaccinated. Numbers are declining. Like, it's down 90%. They're almost fully back to normal. Like, I have friends in Israel. They're all outside. They're all partying. Like, COVID's over there, right? So we can be over COVID if the vaccines get to a certain level, right? Every part in the States it's going down compared to us. The fascinating thing is that the states that are getting rid of the lockdowns, they're seeing numbers go down faster than the places that are increasing lockdowns. Who would have thought that a virus that was manufactured indoors, designed to spread indoors, might spread a bit more effectively if you force everyone to be indoors for an entire year? Completely beats me. I have no idea how that could happen. No idea how a virus designed to spread indoors could proliferate so prolifically. Yes, that's correct. When you force everyone to be indoors. Utterly shocking. Utterly shocking. You know what we need to do? Stop the churches. We need to stop churches. Is there any data that shows the churches are where the spread is? No. Zero data. However, it's science. Got to believe the science, right? The science says that churches are bad because we want them to be closed. So Michelle Rempel finally gets on this thing. I'll read this. The stammering village idiot hates small businesses. Yeah, I mean, okay, this is another thing where it just drives people crazy. Like, I'm sure Ron here is smart enough to realize that how is it dangerous to go into a mom and pop store, but it's not dangerous to go into Costco? And the stupidest thing about this, the stupidest thing about all of this is the fact that they close off like little thing like my dad sent me a message like he was in Loblaws or something, right? And he could get spices, but he couldn't buy a frying pan. Like, what? Like, who's like this? They're just literally taking darts and throwing it at the wheel of science, right? It's the magical wheel of science. What do we need? Spices. What can't we have? Frying pans. Okay, science. Praise be the science. Science. Free speech was taken away a long time. Yeah, I mean, okay, that's another issue we're gonna get to. The free speech thing. By the way, I found a terrorist lawyer today. Not the one who's not the person who's suing me, but I found another lawyer who's basically, his job is to defend terrorists. It was a good day finding him. Taking on the deep state. Okay, or the deep province. Okay, so here we are, where small businesses, haram they cannot do it. No small businesses, totally haram. Okay, Walmart open for business. More Walmart, more Costco. Thanks, Melissa Lantsman, and of course, Doug Fat Trudeau Ford. Have we tried not locking down? Like, have we actually tried being like, you know what? Go outside. Go outside. Go outside. Looks like the virus was created in a lab in Wuhan. Looks like it's designed to spread indoors. You know what? Go outside. Get some fresh air. Soak in the sun. Have a life. Talk to your grandmother. Talk to my grandmother. Someone talk to my grandmother, okay? Booby Annie is an absolute darling, okay? We need, she's a total gem. But, this is where we're at. We're just closing small businesses, right? Letting big boxers go, and just with the wheel of science. The wheel of science will get us through. Okay, so this is what we're doing, just locking down. And let's just play the game that everything the media is saying is true. This pandemic is the worst thing that's ever happened. Ignore all the flu numbers that don't exist. Just ignore all that, okay? Ignore. Turn your brain off, okay? Guys, set your brains to Trudeau mode, all right? And then come back in, all right? So take a deep breath, set your brain to Trudeau, then let's go through this. We have the Trudeau government, which was bragging at the beginning that it had the largest procurement of vaccines, the most vaccines. Well, here's sort of where a lot of chickens are coming home to roost in the sort of Canadian socialized healthcare, okay? Canada is not a friendly country to massive pharmaceutical companies. Now, I don't think all massive pharmaceutical companies are the nicest people in the world. I don't trust them, with my life, fully. Do I think they drive up the price of certain needed medications to drive profit? Yes. Do I think they're really pushing this hormone replacement stuff for trans stuff just to benefit? Yes. Now, do I think the pharmaceutical industry is evil, needs to be disbanded? No. Okay, guys, there is a much worse alternative to the pharmaceutical industry, and that's not having a pharmaceutical industry. Okay, modern medicine is a wonder. All right, a lot of you, if you're over 50 or 60, you're mostly alive because of modern medicine. Right? Most of us, right? Where you take some sort of pills, you've taken an aspirin, you take an Advil. Now, of course, try and take as few medications as you can, but some of you might have MS. Some of you might have, diabetes. So, some of you might have different diseases that like, I'm not saying let the strong survive and the weak perish, but no, we have a modern pharmaceutical industry that, for the most part, can fuel us to a life expectancy of 80 plus. This is a great thing. Okay? Canada's not friendly to the pharmaceutical companies. Now, America is, and the American system is broken, but this is where you see the Canadian system being broken. We have almost no domestic manufacturing capabilities of vaccines, of medicines, and hopefully, if there's any good to come out of this pandemic, it's that countries need to realize that the reliance on China to manufacture pharmaceuticals is an inherent national security threat. It's so dangerous to be so reliant on China for essential materials like pharmaceuticals. It can't happen. Now, we need some domestic manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, but I mean, this goes to what I says. We need much better relations with India, much better, because India is the only country with its billion people who can sort of match the domestic manufacturing capabilities or the international manufacturing capabilities that of China, and then sort of be able to supplement the rest of the world. Again, it's a globalized, connected world. You're never going to be able to be fully self-sufficient and produce all the things we need, in our own country. The great example is like, you want a slice of pizza for less than $27. Well, then we need foreign trade. Okay, we need to be able to get tomatoes from Mexico. You need to be able to get cheese imported from Quebec. You need to then get yeast from Iowa. Again, you need all these things to come in mass and markets, blah blah blah. So you can go in, pay $4, get a pizza slice, and live. But we don't have the domestic manufacturing capabilities of pharmaceuticals. So we really need India. We need India because they have 1 billion people there. And what you do not, actually, you might know, because I've been covering this on the show for years. Canada has done such a great job of alienating ourselves from India. For this big diversity government, you always see the Canadian government and the Canadian mainstream media is directly working against the interests of the Indian government and the Indian people. You saw this because they were pushing this Khalistani farmer nonsense, right? How did this farmer protest become a story in Canada? Do any of you even know what the farmer protest is about? If you watched it on the news, they never explained what the farmer protest is about. They never talked about the groups behind it. Yet Greta Thunberg got involved. The CBC got involved. A lot of good, evidence. A lot of good people would be skeptical of it just because of the sources, right? You see the CBC, you see, Greta Thunberg, okay, the farmer protest is nonsense, right? You watch me and I'm like, no, it's actually Khalistani nonsense. We've been circling closer and closer to Pakistan. We're naming parks after the founder of Pakistan, even though we murdered all the minorities. Yeah, real LGBTQ plus advocate there, Pakistan. I think it's America's funding gender studies, Pakistan. By the way, do not make fun of Pakistani gender studies. I got slapped as a Facebook violation for that. So I want everyone to know that Pakistan's gender studies program is the greatest gender studies program there ever was, and there's nothing funny about it. It is only amazing. Okay. So this is our government, right? Where we're directly undermining India, right? So we're basically we're undermining our own domestic manufacturing capabilities, which you're seeing right now. Where's the domestic pharmaceutical industry? Non-existent. The second best option is India, and thank God India actually was nice enough to say okay, you can have some vaccines and you can have some medical supplies here. But we're almost fully reliant on China for our entire medical industry. And that's terrifying. That's something that we're not really talking about right now. But it has to be acknowledged. We're so reliant on the Chinese. And just to show one of our, we have the widest vaccine portfolio in the world. Well, one of those vaccine portfolios that Justin Trudeau acquired was a $45 million contract to the Chinese to buy vaccines from them. And they just said no. They said, yeah, you gave us the money, but you have one of our high-ranking officials detained, Meng Wanzhou. So no, you don't get it. And it's like, but we paid you. No, we don't pay you. You get it. Like, you don't get it. Just give it. Like, it's basically their whole. Like, again, Trudeau, how many times does Trudeau need to hit his head against the wall and realize that the Chinese do not, like, no matter how much you pander to them, it's never enough. This is, people don't get this about extremists. No matter how much you pander, it's never enough. Hey, Daniel, should we care that Jagmeet and Chrystia were junior leaders of the World Economic Forum? Yes. So is Michelle Rempel, I believe. Yeah, this is terrifying. Yeah, and like, listen, I think the World Economic Forum, like, there's a video, a full video I did in the Great Reset on the YouTube channel. I dedicated the entire 1 hour episode of Uninterrupted to the Great Reset. But the Great Reset, what people don't realize about it is how friggin' stupid it is. Like, it's really, really funny and really, really stupid. Like, it's really stupid. Like, I really highly recommend that video because a lot of you are like afraid of it, and you should be. It's a horrible program, but I would advise you, when we talk about the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum, to have less fear and more hysteria. Like, I wouldn't like be like, oh my God, they're gonna kill us. These are the most evil people ever. Like, try not to make them out to be like these great masterminds. They're idiots. The plan is stupid. It's absolutely idiotic. So I suggest you watch that and learn how to make fun of these idiots, because it's really, really dumb. I call it a Karenocracy. Like, it's like the way they're trying to take over the world is like, it's a Karen apocalypse. It's absolutely moronic. But yeah, these are concerning. All our major leaders, like, Jagmeet Singh, Khalistani, Trudeau, and Chrystia Freeland, girl Trudeau, Doug Ford, fat Trudeau, but on this, Michelle Rempel, like, fake conservative. They're all World Economic Forum people, and no one can sort of push back against this. It's really amazing. And the World Economic Forum's out there saying, like, you will own nothing and you will be happy. I know, guys. Do you like owning nothing? Do you like owning nothing? Should I take all your possessions away? Would you be happy? Okay. So let's circle back to, where we were before. So you have these scandal. And finally, all this is coming through. Like, Justin Trudeau's absolute failures. Like, again, you might not want the vaccine. Fine. I'm not going to shame you. There's a lot of, I've been over all the reasonable reasons to be skeptical of this vaccine. All right, whatever. Is it going to kill everyone who gets it? No. Like, I have tons of family members who've gotten it. They're all still alive. All right. But people want this vaccine, and we need to, get vaccines in the arms of the people who want it. Trudeau can't do that. It's a massive failure. Massive failure. And we were making fun of America at the beginning because we got one person vaccinated, like, before the Americans. Yeah, we got like 10 vaccines, and the Americans got millions. So don't expect Canada to be open anytime soon. All right. So now that Jake Tapper and CNN finally, hit the liberals, then the conservatives came out of the woodwork to be like, aha, now we can go on Twitter and we have something we can talk about. So Michelle Rempel's now out there attacking Justin Trudeau and on this Tru-anon thing, which, like, a great coin phrase by Jake Tapper, because, as you know, the truth is just a right-wing talking point. Republicans pounce on truth. Now she's out there on the woodwork. Now she's all on Twitter. Now she's back and active. Now she's fighting for you again. Now she's up and out there. Look at how bad the liberals are. It's like, Michelle, where were you the last 2 weeks when churches were closed down and fenced off? Like, were there any civil liberties concerns? You're in Albertan. I'm pretty sure she's in Albertan. This is Alberta. Get in there, Michelle. What are your views on closing down and fencing off churches? Huh? What do you think? What are you thinking? Huh? Any opinions on that? But no, again, it was not safe to talk about this. And this is the problem with Aaron O'Toole's Conservative Party. Okay? The O'Tooleism, the Tooleism, let's call it, the Tooleism in the Conservative Party. This is toolish conservatism. Is you can never slam the liberals for their ideology. You slam them for their application of said ideology because you want to copy it. Covered this last night, Wyatt and I. But essentially what we're saying here is what Aaron O'Toole is making the case of is that this wasn't real socialism. And when he invokes socialism, it's going to work this time. Right? And it's not exactly socialism, it's Trudeauism. Right? So what Aaron O'Toole and Michelle Rempel and the Conservative Party are doing is they're attacking Justin Trudeau when he, like, fails. And they attack him for failing, not because the idea was flawed to begin with. Right? So let's say, Wile E. Coyote needs to catch the Roadrunner, and his plan is to get a giant Acme rocket and ride it. But he rides it into a wall. Oopsie doozles. What the Conservatives are coming in and saying is, see, this person doesn't know how to pilot a rocket. Vote for me, and I'll get the Roadrunner on an even better rocket. Whereas the actual person say, stop with these stupid rocket schemes. Stop buying your supplies from Acme Supplies, right? Stop getting rockets and anvils, right? And using them to construct traps for the Roadrunner. This is idiotic. That's what the Conservative Party should be saying. This Conservative Party should be going with the message. Not only is Justin Trudeau a failure, but his ideas, even if implemented properly, would fail, right? That's Trudeauism. They are not doing that. They're making the case that, you know what? The ideas aren't the bad thing because, we tested Canadians in polling companies, and Canadians like when they hear the term social justice. So we can't say social justice is bad. We just need to make the argument that Justin Trudeau's application of social justice isn't correct, and then we'll implement real socialism or real social justice, and then it will be better. This is the problem with the Conservative Party under the tool. It's toolish and foolish. It doesn't make the argument that the liberals' ideas are bad. It says they're implemented bad. So how do you distinguish yourself? As you just have to hope that everyone hates Justin Trudeau so much by the time he calls an election. Justin Trudeau's going to pick the right time to call an election, guys. He knows when he wants the election. He's going to call the election once Canada is safe and open back up, and the media is going to talk about what a great job Justin Trudeau did getting us out of this pandemic and how we're all safe. And then everyone's frustrations are going to be mitigated for a while because we're all allowed to go outside. He's going to use that euphoria to then bump him a few points in the polls and then try and win an election that way. And Aaron O'Toole cannot beat him unless he makes the case that he is different than him. Aaron O'Toole maybe 60% of Canadians believe in this sort of foolish ideological nonsense. I think it's actually less. I think it's 40% and 30. I think it's 40% of Canadians believe in the Trudeauist nonsense, the left-wing stuff. 30% of Canadians are more conservative. And then, the other 30% can sort of be swung either way. And I'm saying the way you win those swing 30 is you actually go to your 30, say it's good, and you draw people in that way, and you let the other three parties fight for the other spots, and then you ride in and you win. But that's not what O'Toole is doing. O'Toole is doing the thing of, because 40% is the biggest pool of Canadians, they decided to get in that pot as well. So now you have four different parties, theoretically five, who knows, the Bloc too, that's French. But you have three parties, the Greens, the NDPs, the Liberals, and the Conservatives, competing for the votes on the left. And everyone's ignoring, the votes on the right, and the Conservatives just figuring, well, those people will come around to us anyway. And yeah, there are people in the Conservative Party who are just Conservative Party loyalists. No matter what, people just I'm more conservative. They don't follow politics. They don't know any of this. It just comes around. They'll click the blue box. Okay. If this is your plan, but that's not every conservative. There's going to be other right-wing parties. There's going to be Maverick. There's going to be PPC. There's going to be options for people to go to who are, conservatively minded. Not again, Aaron O'Toole's not the point where if there's a print in the, I don't want to use the term far right, but in the 2019 election, where it was Andrew Scheer versus Maxime Bernier, you could still be, not every type of principled conservative needed to go to the PPC, let's say, all right? The type of people who were PPCers were more hardline conservative across the board. Here's our views on actual conservatism, and we're going here because it's actually more conservative than the Conservative Party. There was a conservative moral argument to be made to sort of stay on the Andrew Scheer side. That's gone. Now you don't have to be a sort of hardline. Now it's just any type of principled conservative. Any type of conservative who's slightly to the right of center, any type would probably say, you know what? I can't vote for this Aaron O'Toole party. Now, there'll be people who will still vote for Aaron O'Toole. And I mean, those are the people on his staff. I'm sure Jeff Ballingall, Dan Robinson, Wally Suleiman, all the people who work for him in his office will vote for him. I'm sure the Conservative Party has the votes locked up of Aaron O'Toole's family, his staff, 90% of his staff's family, the MPs running for the Conservative Party, the families of the MPs, locked up, absolutely locked up. Don't need to rely on them. But for the rest of the party, name one thing that Aaron O'Toole does to sort of win you over. And listen, I'm not the most hardline pro-life guy in the world, right? I'm sort of centrist on the abortion debate. But Aaron O'Toole couldn't vote to ban same-sex abortion, like sex-selective abortion. Like, that's not a good type of, I don't know. I think that's morally wrong. When you look at the baby, it's like, oh, is it a boy or an abortion? Yeah, let's murder all the girls. I don't want a girl. Keep killing it until I get a boy. Sorry, no, that's not a justifiable reason for an abortion. It's not. I can understand, oh, this woman, she's a prostitute who's addicted to drugs and this abusive system, and this baby, she doesn't have the ability to care for this baby, and she doesn't have the ability to stay clean and sober, and you know what? What? Okay, whatever. Rape, incest. Yeah, okay, I get it. But is it a girl? Let's kill it. No, you can't do that. And we talked about that. 52% of Canadians say they'd be more likely to vote for a party that would ban sex selective abortion. I also said same-sex abortion. Gay abortions. That's basically what the left is now. It's our gays need abortions, and he's going to take abortion away from the gays. Right? Aaron O'Toole is so afraid of the media. And in this, this abortion thing is sort of proof positive of that Aaron O'Toole will never have the ability to stand up to the media on your behalf. And this is kind of what a lot of people liked about Donald Trump. Is a lot of people didn't like Trump's demeanor in 2016, but a lot of people liked the fact that Trump would fight for them. Because conservatives have been so tired of watching every conservative and Republican politician just totally stab them in the back, say, I'm going to fight for you and get elected. And then as soon as they're in office, they're just so afraid of what CNN's going to say that they just back down and they throw their base under the bus again and again and again. And people intuited correctly that Donald Trump would not back down to the media and he would fight. And they like this. Aaron O'Toole, if you think Aaron O'Toole is going to fight for you, if you think Aaron O'Toole would take 10 seconds out of his day to make your life easier, if he knew that doing so would result in one op-ed from the Toronto Star that was slightly negative, he wouldn't. Not a chance. There's not a chance Aaron O'Toole would do something to benefit you if he thought there was a chance that the Toronto Star, the most left-wing paper in the country, would say something negative about him in an article. Not a chance. If you believe that Aaron O'Toole would run through that blockade, you're insane. You're fundamentally insane. Who owns our politicians? I actually did it in an episode. Broken, you're going to get an answer to this question. Okay. Settle down, kids, and listen to how the deep state / deep province runs. All right. Let's say you want to buy one of our politicians. It's pretty easy. Going rates for one in Canada around $5,000 to $10,000, depending on their integrity. So you have $5,000 you want to buy a politician. Now, you can't really do it as yourself. The key to buying a politician is having money, but also having the know-how, having politicians think that you have more money, okay? So you want to buy a politician. Do you just go up to said politician's door, be like, hello, member of parliament, blah, 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 blah. Here's $5,000. No, that's how you get booked. It works a bit more sophisticated than this. So what you do is you go to a lobbying firm / strategy company, okay, that do strategies in polls. So if you are Walmart, if you are the Muslim Brotherhood, if you are the Khalistani movement, if you are the Chinese Communist Party, how do you buy our politicians? Well, you get a contract with a certain strategy company. If you want the Conservative Party strategy company, I'm not going to name them for legal purposes, but you can view things over the crest of this argument if you want. Now, you go to one of these strategy polling companies and you give them $10 million to do research and polls for you. Right? But it's heavily implied. You go there, you talk to the right people, that what you're really buying is political influence, because this same strategy company you gave $10 million to, well, what they have a promise with conservative or liberal or NDP politicians. If you look at a certain strategy company, you'll find that half of the boards, executive boards of the UCP, Conservative Party of Ontario, and Federal Conservative Party belong to this specific strategy company. All of them are on this, half of them. Okay. So what's implied is if you're an MP and you play ball, right? If you play ball and you do the right things and you sort of play ball, go with the narrative, when blank strategies comes in and gives you an idea, if you're like, oh, that's a good idea, well, then you have a job lined up after you leave office, right? You can get lots of funding and you can be director of strategic responses to whatever, right? So it's a delayed gratification, all right? Now, the same thing is when you give your money to the Conservative Party, they then use this money to conduct polls and research. Oh boy. Okay, so to recap, you're a Muslim Brotherhood guy. You're a Khalistani operative. You're the Chinese Communist Party. You're a major corporation. What you do to buy politicians, you don't go and hand money to Aaron O'Toole. It's not how you do it. You find the people who run the strategy companies that have all their board members and operatives on the Conservative Party. You then get strategies for them. You pay them to do research, but really go to the people and say, hey, here's the policies we want to push. Then they then go to the Conservative Party or the Liberal Party, say, hey, here's what we're pushing, you play ball. And if you're a Liberal or Conservative and you play ball, right, then you get kickbacks from said strategy company, and it's all done legally. There you go. Who owns the politicians? That's how it's done. It's everyone, right? It's groups that can pick up the money. I've left the Conservative Party, told Garner Jr., my MP, to dump O'Toole. He's nothing for the West handlers or whatever, which granted Maverick all the way. Yeah, go for Maverick, Kathy. Garner Jr., we once did a story covering the Conservative Party's connections to the Chinese, Aaron O'Toole's connections to the Communist Chinese Party. Very well researched and detailed article. Nothing refuted, but because of that, Garrett Genui's secretary got my cell phone number somehow and started threatening me and telling me that I needed to remove his name from the National Telegraph website. So yeah, that's Garnet Genui. Like he's gonna, when Garnet Genui is LARPing like he's gonna run around pretending like he's tough on China. Fact check, no. So that's a Garnet Genui thing. So yeah, I wouldn't expect Garnet Genui to ever, he's not out there fighting the deep state. Let's just say. Okay, so. Okay, where are we? We just explained how the deep state works. All right, let's get into America, because this is this type of stuff that's just the gaslighting that drives everyone crazy. Like, you got Rashad Tlaib saying, like, no more police. The police are structurally racist. Dante Wright or whatever. Now, did this guy deserve to die? No. Am I glad he's dead? No. Did he deserve to get tased? Yeah, he needed a tasing. This guy needed a tasing, okay? You watch the video, all right? He's getting pulled over because he has an arrest warrant out, right? He didn't have his tags. His tags were out of date. His registration was out of date. So his registration was out of date. So because it was out of date, they ran his plates and realized, oh, he needs them to be, up to date. Well, you pull him over. You run the tag. Oh, it turns out this guy has an outstanding arrest warrant. What did he do? Well, aggravated robbery, which means him and a friend robs a woman or tried to rob a woman by putting a gun at her head and trying to take $800 for her. And there's multiple witnesses to this, right? Then he got out on bail. Then he was also in violation of his bail prohibitions because there's videos he has of him smoking a blunt, driving a car while wielding a gun. You cannot have a gun on probation. You also cannot smoke weed and drive at the same time. You cannot smoke weed and drive and make videos while wielding a gun all simultaneously. So, this guy was just a great father trying to turn his life around. No, he was an aspiring gangster who had an outstanding arrest warrant, tried to escape from police custody and get away. And then an incompetent officer, she clearly thought she had a taser, shot him in the stomach with a gun, said, oh, damn, I just shot him, was clearly shocked, and then he died. This is involuntary manslaughter. It's involuntary manslaughter. Pretty clear-cut case. It's not murder. Wasn't racist. They didn't know who he was. Like, they would have, and when they ran the plates, and then he came up, like, this guy had a gun, apparently a gun on him in the car too. History of violence. Arrest warrant out. Like, that's why they were, like, in violation of parole. The cops had every right to arrest him. Every right to arrest him. He needed to be arrested. He deserved to go back to jail. He should not have been out. I'm not saying, like, everyone deserves to be in jail, no second chances. But you know what? If you're out on parole and you're making videos, smoking weed, driving a car, wielding a gun, you need to go back to jail. I just think if you're making, I hate when people make videos. Like, one of my pet peeves is people, and this is actually like a right-wing white guy thing, so I can criticize. As a right-wing white right-winger, I can criticize this. But I hate dangerous driving. Like, stop making videos, everyone, driving in your car. It drives me insane. I don't listen to them. Now, I get why people make videos in the car. Great sound. Like, it's insulated. I'm not saying, like, Matt Walsh used to do his show from the car. You want to make a video in your car? Pull over, make a video in the car. I listen. I do not listen to anyone driving and making a video. Focus on the road. Cars are dangerous. It's a responsibility, right? Cars are dangerous. Guns are dangerous. You can't have I'm not saying you can't have a gun. You can't have a car. But if you have a gun, be responsible. Don't wield your gun around while drinking alcohol. Then you can't have a gun, right? I think everyone would agree with that. Reasonable gun owners. Don't drink and drive, because then you can't have a license. Don't drive and make videos. Drives me crazy. But knows what drives me even more crazy? People driving high, making videos, wielding guns. Drives me absolutely crazy. This guy was a danger to society. Like, I do not, like, come on, people need to know that I'm making videos, informing the people. Calling me on my phone. I told you I was doing a show at 8. Okay. So it drives me crazy. This guy's driving me crazy, okay? This guy cannot be out there wielding guns, smoking weed, driving cars, robbing people at gunpoint, okay? So stop turning this guy into a saint. Now, is there a way to protest this? Yes. I think you can have legitimate protest of, like, listen, this cop was out of bounds, right? Too quick to draw the gun. But I think any reasonable person should look at that and be like, yeah, that guy needed a tasing. That guy, that's a paddling. This guy needed a paddling, okay? Or a tasing. This guy absolutely deserved to get tased. Now, can you justify, like, lethal, like, you know, is this involuntary manslaughter? Yes. Can this person get off? Theoretically, because once you go back into a car while resisting arrest and getting away, like, you can have a gun in there. Like, this is a man who is on video having guns, who has a history of committing gun crimes, resisting arrest, breaking away from officer, and going into the car. Police officers could get shot there. Like, you can make a justification for why force is necessary there, or lethal force is potentially necessary. Like, don't do that, right? But people are like, you know, but again, it shows the left just wants to riot. There is no actual principle of, like, reform police. And I went over this, like, in the George Floyd thing last year, okay? Tim Scott, the Republicans put forward a pretty good police reform bill. Got shut down by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and no one covered this. CNN didn't cover it. CNN's propaganda. And we just learned that this week. Thank you, Project Veritas. Absolute propaganda. Can't be doing it. Now, the best example of this is, I'm not sure if you saw the guy, the Army lieutenant, black Army lieutenant in Virginia, who got pepper sprayed, and now he's suing the cops. I highly suggest you watch the entire video of this. Officer Tatum has a great 30-minute video where he breaks down the entire thing. It's great. You know, I'll just actually, you know what? I'm going to interrupt this. Before this, word from our sponsors. NordVPN, link in the below. Listen, you want a VPN, I want a VPN. You know what? Sometimes the deep state is trying to find you. Literally. Sometimes the deep state will spend $5,000 hiring a private investigator to track you down. Happens to someone you know. But they can't find me. One of the reasons they can't find me, one, I don't make my address public. Two, VPNs, okay? It's a great way to bounce around your location. No one can really location. It's a great way to also hide your data if you're worried that people are going to be storing your data to use against you. VPNs. Now, if you don't care about any of that stuff, if the deep state isn't trying to get you, if you're like, screw it, I want Facebook to have my data, I do not care. I'm not that paranoid. Do you want to watch American Netflix? Do you want to watch New Zealand Netflix? VPNs. So if you want to get a VPN, if you're going to get one anyway, you might as well support me by clicking the link below to get NordVPN. There you go, VPN stuff. Also, the show is sponsored by Daniel Boardman. If you want to keep Daniel Boardman out of jail from defamation courts, you can donate to the Patreon or just PayPal me and help me fund the multiple legal assaults against me by people inside the Aaron O'Toole campaign. That's right, another one of Aaron O'Toole's flunkies is filing a frivolous defamation suit against me because Aaron O'Toole will fight cancel culture. Okay, so let's get to the police and the Virginia thing, because this one drives me crazy. And this was like, so this one, when you first saw it, it looked really bad. It looked like the police just absolutely harassing a black man who was part of the army. And I saw it, I'm like, oh, no, that's bad. This might be racism. But you watch the entire thing because the police released all the body cam footage. Okay, here's the story of the Army lieutenant in Virginia. Here's the story, all right? He doesn't have his license plate properly displayed. Now, he did have it up in a corner on paper, but like the actual license plate was not in the back. So they were just going to stop him, right, and say, sir, we cannot see your license properly displayed. Are you aware of that, right? So I'm sure it's all happened to you. you get stopped by the police, and it's actually something like, "Did you know, sir, that you had a taillight out?" Well, one of the times, I that's happened to me. I remember once getting stopped by the police and like I just not have my lights on properly. I said, "Oh, sir, officer, what's this about?" He's like, "You didn't have a license, your lights on." I'm like, "Oh no." He's like, "Is this your car?" I'm like, "Oh, actually, it's my grandmother's car. We're just borrowing it." He's like, "Okay, yeah, that happens often." Like, flick the thing when it's not someone's lights. Thank you, officer. Didn't happen again. Got off. And I'm sure even black people have that story where it's like, "Yep, tail light was out. Officer just told me to go get it fixed," and boom, it's there. However, this happened. He then drove 1.5 miles with police lights flashing and sirens going, and then didn't stop. What he did is he then pulled into a gas station in a well-lit place. Right. So once you don't stop for 1.5 miles, this then qualifies as a high-risk stop for police, because the police don't know what you're up to. If you're not pulling over for 1.5 miles, then you set up in a tactical position inside a well-lit gas station. They don't know what's about to go down. So they get out of the car and they say pretty loudly, like, "Hey, sir, get out of the car. Put your hands outside the vehicle. Hands outside the vehicle." Right? And he's ignoring them for a while. And he's ignoring them because what he's doing is he then sets up his phone to do a live stream, to film it all. He clearly wanted to turn himself into a martyr. To have this is why you should not say this guy's name, because he wanted to make himself Black Lives Matter famous, and we can't enable this type of behavior. But very clearly, the police are saying, "Sir, hands outside the vehicle," right? Because we want to make sure that you do not have a weapon, because it's a high-risk stop. Now, any reasonable person, because he actually did have a gun on him, any reasonable person, after you've taken the police on 1.5 mile road trip, any reasonable person, and when asked to put your hands outside the vehicle and guns are pointed at you, you put your hands inside the vehicle. Step out of the vehicle. "Yes, sir." All right. "Why didn't you do this?" Because this is what you have to do. Like, you have to, because if you approach the vehicle, had happened a normal thing, this is a high risk spot, you risk just getting shot and then killed. Right. So this is, and people bring it up. There's a cop shot in New Mexico on a regular stop. You're right. Yeah. So, I mean, you're much more likely to, people get killed in traffic stops. Okay. Random police stops. The people most likely to get killed are actually the police officer, not the person. Now, if you try and resist arrest and try and kill the police officer or fight the police officer, your odds of dying go way up. Basic math, okay? So this guy, clearly not listening, is clearly instigating the situation. "What am I being pulled over for, officer?" Like, "Hands outside the vehicle." "What's this all about, officer?" Like, this is not the time where they start saying, "Actually, sir, we couldn't see your registration." It's like, no, this is now a high-risk stop because you have been disobeying orders, right? And like, again, then he had to go there to come up with guns. "What do you do?" "Just get outside the vehicle, then we can talk," right? We can't talk to you in a high-risk situation, right? Because you didn't stop for 1.5 miles. Then you took us to a gas station. Then you went to a well-lit area so you could film this entire thing, right? And again, he's a lieutenant in the army, so he should know this. He was receiving clear commands the entire way through, right? The only time their police are going to start talking to you is once you get inside the vehicle, show that you don't have a weapon on you, and step away from the door. So they say, "Okay, he's now no longer a threat." But he wasn't doing that. And he's a military man, so he knew that he was still a threat. He knew he was still a threat tactically. He kept his seatbelt on, kept everything on, right? And then the police, when they finally saw whatever, then they switched from the gun to pepper spray. Then he was still being obstinate and not going. And then they try and open the vehicle and open the door. Then he stops them. Okay. So then once they try and open the door so they can have a better look inside and check up the system, then he grabs the door and stops them. Okay. Now he's physically obstructing. Then they pepper sprayed him so they could open it up, because it made sense. Like, this guy deserved a pepper spray. Absolutely. Now, if it was a regular civilian, maybe not, but especially because he was a military officer and he was clearly instigating this and he was being a tactical threat and he knew exactly what he was doing, pepper spray him. Yeah, I don't care about his eyes. He'll be fine. I'm not saying shoot him. He didn't deserve to die. This guy needed a spanking. Like, that's paddling. Clearly, okay? So then he was physically obstructing. Then he gets pepper sprayed. Then they take it off. Then they're like, "Come out of the car." He's like, "I can't. I need you to get my seatbelt." It's like, no, we're not going to take your seatbelt off, because if you're a cop and he's whatever doing that and you reach in to go get a seatbelt, you're then vulnerable, right? Your neck is down, your arms are in, you're a bad tech. He could then grab you in a hold, pull out a gun, use you as a body. Like, again, bad things can happen. You don't put yourself in that position. And he knew this because he was a lieutenant in the army, right? So they finally get him out, do it the way, get him in there, finally take him into a position where he's no longer a tactical threat. Then after he's no longer a tactical threat, then they're like, okay, let's talk. This is what this is about. So then you can even see on the body footage, like the cop was just like, listen, sir, I appreciate your service. And I was in the Marines too. So I know what's going on here, all right? You got to understand it from our perspective. Like, you took us for a 1.5 mile chase, okay? We didn't get you for a 1.5 miles. We don't know who you are. We don't know you were an Army veteran, like who wasn't, up to anything bad. Like, you could be anyone, right? You're driving a truck. It's tinted windows. We have no idea who you are, right? We just couldn't see it. Like, now we see that you do actually have your license displayed up there, but it's in paper. You can understand how we can't see it. So he's like, listen, there's a couple ways we can play this, all right? I've been in the military, you've been in the military. Like, I don't want to write you up here. The officer, even he's like, listen, the guy was clearly, obstructing an investigation, or like, it was like there was an obstruction charge, and it, like, because they were literally obstructing it and on a traffic stop and resisting. Like, he's like, we don't need to file that, okay? Because he's like, I know what happens. I've been in the military. We file that. It goes up to your superiors. The military can get you in double jeopardy. It's going to ruin your life if we do that. All right. I don't want to go down. Right. I would be happy to just sit with you until you can get your eyesight back because you've been pepper sprayed. I'm happy to sit here, wait with you, take care, get you some snacks, wait until your vision's good enough that you can drive away and we can just let bygones be bygones and we can all learn something from this. Right. If not, right, if you want to file a complaint and whatever, well, then we'll have to write you up for obstruction and put in the whole thing and what happened, and then this goes to military court. So even after all this, the cops are still really nice and respectful to him. Like, listen, we respect what you're doing in the military. I was there too, right? And because you're a military man, like, we don't want to file anything against you. But you have to understand the situation we were in at the time. The cops in Minneapolis, they had bad tactics, right? They were bad tactically, and because they were bad tactically and made these mistakes, right? Dwayne Wright or whatever was able to escape from them and then get himself in a position where he got killed. Because these cops actually had good tactics, they kept the subject in a position where he was never a lethal threat, and they never had to use lethal force on him. Right? But none of this matters. And the truth doesn't matter, so we're just going to riot and burn down the whole city. Burn down everything. Because everything needs to burn, and this is how we do it. This is how we do it. Na, 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 na. Drives me crazy. Right? So now everyone's burning down. I thought it's important that everyone know the actual truth of that story because it's going to be going around, and you should have the information. I would recommend Officer Tatum, if you look him up, former police officer. He does a great breakdown of these incidents. And, I think the truth is important. The truth is just a right-wing talking point, but I actually think it's kind of important. I think we should, do that. So guys, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the whatever, click the bell, to click all the things. If you want to support the show, Patreon, PayPal, you want to get a VPN, click the link down below. Okay. Let's end up on some, we're ending the war in Afghanistan again. So Afghanistan, war in Afghanistan, ending again, Afghanistan again, above Iran, and there we go, Afghanistan, above Pakistan. Beside Pakistan and Iran is Afghanistan, the triumvirate of stability. So the war in Afghanistan is going to be over again. Joe Biden's going to be ending it. Listen. Has it gone in a long time? 20 years? Yeah. Has it been a resounding success? No. Was it morally justified? Yeah. Is Joe Biden a great statesman in foreign policy? No, he's actually going to be the worst in human history. Maybe Woodrow Wilson, but I think he has potential to be worse than Barack Obama. Now, just because you're withdrawing from Afghanistan doesn't mean it's going to end, right? The Taliban... Like, if you're saying all the troops are going to be gone by September 11th, what's the Taliban going to do? Same thing the Taliban always does. Just say, okay, guys, let's just build up our forces. Let's save all the suicide bombings for September 12th. And on September 12th, we're going to take over the country. So on September 12th, because all the American troops will be out of Afghanistan on September 11th, listen, and I know no one likes the war in Afghanistan, but I'm just going to report the news and what's going to happen as is. On September 12th, this is the start of the Taliban's offensive. to try and conquer the country of Afghanistan and reestablish a terrorist safe haven. So when the Americans leave, all by September 11th, on September 12th, there will be a massive push from the Taliban to take over the country. That's just the way it is. That's what's going to happen. That's how it's going to go down. Now you can stick your head in the sand and you can do the Glenn Greenwald thing on foreign policy, who I like Glenn Greenwald now on media freedom and the corruption of the press. But like, you know, on foreign policy, it's abysmal. It's Noam Chomskyism. Like you could do I won't use his name. You could Noam Chomsky the place up. This is actually, Noam Chomsky is about a third. You could Noam Chomsky the place up. And you could say, listen, the reason why there's any problems in Afghanistan to begin with is because of the American intervention in the 1980s, okay? Because the CIA funded the Mujahideen, that's why Afghanistan hates America. I don't know why I'm doing this face, but I like it, okay? This isn't even a Noam Chomsky voice, but we're doing it as the Noam Chomsky voice. Noam Chomsky. I'm Noam Chomsky, and I'm the most self-important fake intellectual the world's ever seen. I invented cognitive linguistics and disproved behavioral theory back in the 50s. Now, my theory's also been disproven, but we're never going to talk about that because I'm Noam Chomsky. And I claim that the universities are right-wing institutions. Yes, actual current Noam Chomsky claim. Noam Chomsky currently claims that universities are tools of the far right as they are currently constituted. Okay. But I say Noam Chomsky because Noam Chomsky plays his 6 degrees of American imperialism. And I hate this nonsense. By this, it's if America touched the country at any point, that then becomes the reason why the country does anything bad happens in the country. It's because of the American involvement. Now, I also call Noam Chomsky the grandfather of the white power left. And what I mean by the white power left, it's the same thing. It's that anytime, it's the white people are the most powerful, right? Racism is power plus privilege, and therefore the white people are the most powerful. So it comes from that. But it also comes from the Noam Chomsky theory of foreign policy, where all things that happen in a country are the result of the last time a white person in the country did something. Okay? I recently saw this on a comment thread in a random friend on Facebook who posted something about the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. And of course, some idiot got up there. It's like, yeah, what you're downplaying, though, is the CIA and whatever was in Cambodia. Yeah, like the CIA tried to stop the Khmer Rouge. But like, do you really think it was the CIA's fault? Was it America's fault? There's something called the killing tree. So what the Cambodian and the Khmer Rouge did is they would take sometimes babies and toddlers away from their mothers and live babies. And there was this one big tree and they'd smash the babies against this killing tree. Was that the CIA? Was that America's fault? Did America really force the communist Cambodians to grab babies out of their mother's arms and smash them against trees to bludgeon them to death? Was that America's fault? According to Noam Chomsky and the white power left, yes, it is. Because the CIA. Now, the absolutely stupidest thing about this is it completely fails to acknowledge that, yes, the CIA was places in the 1980s. But do you remember that, in the 70s and 80s, there was something called the Cold War? And I'm going to speak really slowly in case Noam Chomsky is watching. The Cold War actually had 2 different sides. Yes, there's this big thing called Russia. Okay, Russia. It was the USSR. Okay, USSR. There's communist. Okay, and then there was America. Russia, America. 2. Okay, 2 sides. There were 2. Okay, count with me, Noam Chomsky. Guys, give Noam Chomsky time. Let's count to 2 for everyone at the same time for Noam Chomsky. 1, 2. Okay, so there were 2 sides, which means when the American Special Forces or CIA was in a country, you know who also was in that country? The KGB and Russian intelligence, okay? Because both sides of the Cold War had global influence. So let's count again for Noam Chomsky. 1, 2, okay? 1 is the loneliest number that there ever was. 2 can be as bad as 1, but see, different. It's in the song, okay? There's a song, all right? It's different, okay? So if you went to university, you would learn that everything in Latin America that's ever bad happened is the Chinese road thing. I'll go into that. Everything bad in Latin America is because of Henry Kissinger and Ronald Reagan. They were so evil and they went into Latin America. You know who else was in Latin America doing the exact same stuff? The Russians. Now, I'm not saying all of this is right, but you're just omitting context when you don't say the Russians are in there. So when you try and claim that like the Taliban was created by America, like no, like who is the Mujahideen? And not all Mujahideen became Taliban, but who's the Mujahideen fighting at the time? Yes, the Soviets literally invaded Afghanistan. And I love this claim that like the reason the Taliban hates America is because America helped them fight off a communist invasion. It is the most insane thing you could ever say. Okay. So what are you hearing about the Belt Road? Yeah. This is So this is a really great article in the National Telegraph by Pretty Upala on the belt that's done. Now, if someone could find that, but I'll sort of summarize what's going on here. And this is a big Chinese project. It's called like this big infrastructure project. This like they're trying to put a belt over most of Asia. So I mean, China's plan basically is to like own most of the infrastructure around the world. Like they're trying to put it like the belt is literally global in China. And the biggest parts of the Chinese infrastructure belt is actually right. So this is China. They're trying to go into Afghanistan and Pakistan. So you have the block area of Pakistan here near China, and that's where like a lot of human rights abuses. Sorry, my face was totally covering that, so it was just for me. But yeah, there is this sort of belt initiative. So a lot of the abuses in Pakistan just below Afghanistan too, is it's like the Chinese companies basically just moving below people out of their homes to sort of build this road and infrastructure. And China has this plan. I'll try and get into as much as I can. Basically, they have this multi-trillion-dollar plan to sort of build this belt infrastructure around the world and sort of control the flow of goods and create like a new Chinese-controlled Silk Road. Basically, China's up to no good. And the biggest and you know, be very aware of China. Like their new plan is they're trying to launch a digital currency, the digital yuan. So to complete with cryptocurrency. The problem with the digital yuan is it's also another fiat currency. Like it's like Bitcoin and Ethereum and other current cryptocurrencies. They're going to be a major national security asset and maybe save the world coming from China, hopefully, because the Chinese are trying to inflate the US dollar and crash the dollar. And we might have to switch off of like, you know, hard paperback dollars and go to sort of Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. But the Chinese want us to switch to the digital yuan. So the digital yuan sort of works as like a current fiat currency, right? It's not hard backed by anything. It's just magic numbers. So the digital yuan will just be magic numbers. And there's a few problems with this. So the way they're going to get it done is they're going to start to roll that out in China, right? And it will be tied to the social credit system there. Then they're going to give it to the most poor place in the earth, like free money, and they're going to just dump free digital money on Africa. So try and change the African market to run on the digital yuan. Then they're going to start to put it to the rest of the world. And at some point in your life, in the near future, you're going to get a bribe from the Chinese. Here's $2,000 in free Chinese digital money, and they want to hook you onto it. Now, the problem with the digital yuan, again, it's a fiat currency. So they can just make this currency out of thin air, which means it's tied to a central bank. It's tied to the Chinese government. So if the Chinese government decides that you don't deserve your money anymore, right? You made a hate speech against the Chinese government. You said, hey, what's with those concentration camps in the Xinjiang region? They can just delete all your money. So you would have money that the Chinese government could just delete, which is why I highly suggest people start to research how Bitcoin works, because you cannot do that to Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin doesn't have a central server, right? It can't be hacked, right? It's on multiple different servers. It's actually sort of mined from something. It actually is like a bit of a, you know, Bitcoin is kind of real. Bitcoin's essentially the same as gold. Now you can just say, oh, I want gold. Now, if you want gold and you don't trust Bitcoin, fine, invest in gold and silver and precious metals. The reason why gold's not going to work to offset any currency these days is like, it's just not practical. You can't like walk around with nuggets of gold in your pocket or in a pouch and throw them. Whereas like digital currency can be hit everywhere and like divided infinitely into smaller and smaller pieces. So, you know, it's just the way the world, like digital currency will eventually sort of take over. And the choice we're going to have to make on this thing is, are we going to want China's digital yuan, or are we going to want a sort of a hard-backed, in a way, Bitcoin, Ethereum type standard cryptocurrency? So that's going to be a major thing. And this is a massive, massive Chinese play. There is a great article in the National Telegraph if you want to learn about the infrastructure stuff in China. Yeah, I mean, you can Google Pretty Upala National Telegraph. Like maybe, oh, thank you, person running the stream. Yeah, China's corridor to know, that's what it's called. Yeah, okay, thank you. I posted it on Facebook, definitely not someone else. give a total credit to me. So if you're interested in that, although that might have been a YouTube question, I'll take the link and I'll post it on the YouTube channel as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I had a great time doing this. Remember, next week, same bat time, same bat place. And I'll just make sure to get this onto the YouTube. Yeah. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next week.